Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name's Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well on this Friday afternoon. We've made it through the week, heading into the weekend. Hope you all have some plans. I know we can't do much these days, but I hope you're all going to be staying safe, hanging out with your family, and having a good time, taking care of yourself. Very important. Big hello to everyone tuning in live on Behance. If you are tuning in, let me know in the chat who you are and where you're tuning in from. We've got Ariana and Eugene and Lorena and Carmen and Cody, Julia, and who else do we have? Laura, Ankita, Anahit, Islam. Great to see everyone. Hope you're all well. All right, so we're wrapping things up today with day number 9 of this round of challenges, and I did confirm finally that next week we're going to have a special 1-week challenge. I don't know much else other than that, but there's going to be a 1-week challenge. So it should be very exciting. Then we're on break for the holidays and we'll be back in the new year with a lot more challenges, which is going to be fantastic. All right, behance.net/challenge/XD. Head on over there, get all the information about the challenge, especially if you're going to be cramming over the weekend to catch up. You still have time to grab the files and have some fun, learn something new. So how does this work? Well, every single day, Monday to Friday, except the first Monday. Unless it's next week, then it is the first Monday. I know, confusing. You're going to receive a new challenge. You can join us in our Discord community chat right over here. We've got 55,000, I think it's like 57,000 designers in Discord. Crazy. 1,600 online right now. Ask questions, get information about the challenges. And as Gus posted, next week is a special 1-week festive holiday challenge. I don't know who's running it next week, but whoever's running it, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be festive. And there's going to be a special surprise. It's even a surprise to me. I have no idea. So hop in Discord, have a good time. You can watch us live. I'm live 2 o'clock Pacific time every day. Well, until today. Then it's somebody else. But I'm sure they'll be fantastic. And then right after me today, Andrew Hawkrattle and Nick something. I'm sorry, Nick. They're coming up with office hours. And then you can share your work on Discord in the current challenge channel or on Behance using the keyword XD Daily Challenge. All right, so let's quickly catch up what we did over the last 2 weeks. We started off with a landing page using background blur, interactive map with scroll groups. Nick Longo, thank you, Cody. I was close. Did I say it? Did I get it right the first time? I think I was pretty close. We went on to a drop-down menu. I think I also designed a notification center using nested hover, card flip using auto animate and 3D transforms, augmented reality using 3D transforms as well, presentation template using components, slide out menu using component states. Yesterday, we touched on the music library for an iPad using repeat grids. And then today we're wrapping things up by building out a social profile card, and we're going to be using stacks and padding to quickly rearrange elements. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to grab the starter file right here. It's going to ask me if I want to open up Creative Cloud in just a second. And yes, I do. It's going to fire it up, download the starter file, and then in a second it's going to launch Adobe XD. There it is. Oh, you got a preview of something I've been working on. So I've been riffing off of yesterday's challenge, trying to expand upon, the music player and go in some fun directions. I don't know where I'm going with it, but I'm kind of digging it. We've got a light mode, a dark mode. We've got that amazing cat. Ankita is saying the AR challenge is lit. Yeah, it was pretty fun. I enjoyed watching that. All right, watching it. I hosted it. I enjoyed hosting it. That's what I was trying to say. All right, so today, we're designing out a social media app, profile card type of thing. Here is some inspiration down here at the bottom, and then here is an artboard right over here. Now, this one over here, I purposely set to 1200 by 900, and that's typically because, when I'm ever creating like individual elements, I might want to upload them to Dribbble. And Dribbble has a 4:3 aspect ratio, which is 1200 by 900. Or you can go, if you lock this, you go, I think it's 1600 by 1200. That's also an acceptable resolution as well. So we're going to go ahead and get going. Now I'm going to go for somewhat of a darker profile card, right? So I'm going to change the background to a nice dark color, just like that, right? And we want to start building out some of the elements that we're going to place on this card. And we're going to start blocking in some elements, then we're going to explore stacks and padding. So I'm going to grab my rectangle and drag one out just like this. Now I'm not too worried about the initial size, because as we start defining our stacks and our padding, then we'll be able to easily adjust it as we go. Let's go for 32 pixels, possibly. We can always change that later, but we're gonna have a nice rounded corner. Now I'm thinking we're gonna get a little bit creative with this. The background of this particular profile card, and you're free to go in any direction you want, but the background is going to be an image that the user may have uploaded. So I'm gonna hop over to Finder right here, and I'm gonna grab this image here that I grabbed from Adobe Stock. Kind of goes along with that cyberpunk vibe we've been kind of going off of. You know, it's got blues and pinks, and it's just super cool, right? So I'm gonna pop that, boop, directly in there. Now there's a few things I want to change, right? If I just leave it as is, it's gonna be very difficult to add content on top of it. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna flip it. So this guy is looking at some of the content. Next, I'm gonna double click and adjust the mask. I'm gonna make this nice and large, and I'm gonna move him over a little bit. So he's like, you know, half of his face is kind of poking in there, right? Maybe make it a little bit larger as well. And just kind of play around with this until I'm kind of happy, right about there. And this will give me some nice space over here to the left that'll be able to add some content. So, Marcia, a little bit late, but hello, you're not too late. Hi, welcome. So what we're gonna do here is we wanna start adding some elements. First thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab my ellipse and drag on out, just like that. And this is going to be maybe the profile picture of this particular user. And if you've been following me since, 36 looks pretty good, since the beginning of these challenges, you probably know that I've been using the toy faces or avatars quite a bit. So I'm gonna hop into my libraries. I'm gonna hop back to my toy faces library right over here. And let's go ahead and find one. This one looks, this guy's got glasses. I think this could work. So I'm gonna drop this in there. We want someone with glasses, right? And that looks pretty fancy. And maybe I'll give it a little bit of a border. Even though it's not really blending in with that background, it might at some point if the image is changed. So I'm gonna give a little bit of a white border. And then maybe just to keep it on the subtle side, I'll just drop the opacity just a little bit, right? There we go. My dog is whining somewhere. All right. So we've got the profile picture. Thank you, Cody, for linking toy faces. And then over to the right, we might want some information about this user. So I'll just type out for now. Ooh, there's that weird color tube thing going on over it. All right. And let's go ahead and type out, let's say Poppins. And we'll make this nice and bold, just like that. Now it's obviously way too big, and the red's probably not going to work. So we're going to change it to white and drag it on in just like that. Maybe we'll go down to semi-bold, right? So we've got user, just like that. That's looking pretty good. And then down below, we might want to put a little bit of information about what this particular user is. So I'm going to duplicate this down like that. Maybe I'll drop this to medium. And then you know what? He's a badass designer, right? Drop this in size a little bit. That looks pretty good. If you hear any whining in the background, I don't know what my dog is doing, but he's clearly not happy about something. Maybe he's not happy I'm designing right now. There we go. So that looks pretty good, right? All right, so now we can add some additional information on this card. So maybe down below we might want maybe how many followers this guy has, or following, or maybe you wanted just a quick description of who this person is, right? So what I'm gonna do, I can just grab this and duplicate it over. Now, for this particular text layer, right, I used, if you take a look over here, the auto width, right? That one right there. But we also have auto height and we have fixed. So for this one, we might want to just change it to auto height. This will allow me to drag out basically the width, so I can constrain it to this size here. Maybe I'll drop this in size just a little bit, switch this over to regular, and then we can start typing out, who this person is, right? Maybe someone in the chat can write something for me. Let's see. I wear my son glasses at night and while designing. Why not, right? Sunglasses are cool. Change the line height, and that looks pretty good right about there. All right, so we have a little bit of a description, and once we get into stacks, we can add additional things in between, down below, doesn't matter, right? So we've got that looking pretty good, and now we might want to show maybe this user's friends. Duplicate that, type out friends. This will be some sort of a header, so I'm gonna go back to semi-bold and maybe bump up the size a little bit. And maybe since this is a header, we can get a little bit fancy. I wear my sunglasses at night, indeed. Oh, you're all correcting me. I see. I get it. I get it. All right. So maybe we'll go for like Josephine. It's a pretty fancy typeface. And then we want a bunch of this guy's friends listed, or, you know, at least displayed in little profile pictures. So I'm going to grab my rectangle, drag one out just like that. Let's round up the corners just a little bit. 8 pixels looks pretty good. I am going to add a little bit of a border, but you can't see it right now because we need some images, right? So for that, we covered repeat grids yesterday. We are going to be using repeat grids again. So right out here at the top, we're going to press the repeat grid button. Boop. There we go. And now we've got our 2 new handles. We can just drag out a few friends just like that. And of course you can have as many or as few as you want, but that looks pretty good right there, right? So back over to my libraries, let's grab a few friends. Let's just select, that baby's probably not the best option, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, and drag those on in. There we go. We've got our border looking pretty good. Everyone's booping in the chat. Life is good, right? All right, so we've got some things going on, right? Things are coming along. But of course, we might want some additional information. We might want some buttons, so you can follow this person, you can message this person, whatever actions you might want to take, right? So I'm going to grab my rectangle one more time, drag one out just like that. Let's zoom on in here. And for this one, maybe we'll round out the corners completely. And we'll give it a nice, let's say, reddish pink color. We want a nice, bold call to action. And then on the inside, we'll just type out follow. Let's make this nice and bold, like that. Make sure to center it. And this is where we can start exploring padding, right? So for this button here, we might want the ability as we start typing that the button will enlarge as we type, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of these shapes. You can put them into a group, or you can turn them into a component. I will go ahead and turn it into a component right up here. And I'll make sure to turn on padding within the properties inspector, just like that. And that will automatically determine how much space is around this text layer. And now, hello, right? As I start typing, the button, the container in the background automatically resizes, which is wonderful. So we can do one, whoops, let me dive in here. We can do one more, duplicate this over, and maybe this one might say message, just like that, right? And then for this, because this is probably not the primary call to action, we may want to just change this up and maybe just add a bit of a background blur. Just to have a bit of fun with this, right? There we go. And we can tweak this as we go, but that's looking pretty good. Now, one thing you might want to keep in mind that I probably didn't pay attention to is on things like this, the size of a button can actually sometimes determine the priority. So in this case, the message button, even though it's a secondary color almost, because it's longer, some people may look at this and say, well, that's the primary button. So you want to keep that in mind when determining, are you going to use padding or not, right? So in this case, we may not want to use padding. So I'm going to turn off padding and I'm going to set the size. So maybe I'll set it halfway and then a little bit less, right? And then I can just duplicate one over like that. And this one, I'm going to just type out message one more time. Love that background blur. I do too. I'm a big fan. As you can see in these designs here, I'm using a lot of background blurs. Very subtly though, but they're there. So one more time, let's add a background blur. We can tweak the color later, but I'm kind of liking that. All right. So we've got some elements looking pretty good, right? But now we want to start maybe adding some additional ones and really focus on the stacking and the padding process. So what I want to do now is I'm going to select all of these elements. And you know what? Maybe let's add a background image just to kind of make things pop a little bit, right? So I'll just drag out an image here. Maybe I'll grab, let's see, this image here, pop that in there, move it to the back, and then maybe I'll just drop the opacity quite a bit, just to have a little bit of an image in there. And maybe on this shape, I can add a bit of a shadow. Let's bump it out a little bit, make sure it's nice and blurred, and then adjust the opacity as necessary. All right, looking good. Okay, so again, padding, stacks. This is what we're gonna do. In the layers panel, or using a marquee selection, we wanna make sure to select all the elements that make up this particular profile card, right? And once that's done, you can either put it into a component or a group. In this case, I am going to turn it into a component, and I'll show you why in just a moment. So I can either right click, make component, or in the properties inspector over to the right, libraries panel, a lot of different ways to make component, just like that. Go ahead and name this social card. And now over to the right within the properties inspector, we can enable a stack. Now, what's really cool about this is not only did it determine the orientation of the objects, so they're going downwards, right? But you're gonna notice, if I hop in here, it also grouped some elements for me, right? So it noticed that these elements here, they were not grouped originally, but they, XD kind of noticed that it belongs to this particular profile picture. And these buttons, it grouped that for me too. And I can dive in here, and now one day, maybe, hopefully, maybe in the far future, maybe XD or other applications will name your layers and groups for you. That would be kind of cool. So we've gone ahead and defined our stack, and we've also have padding, but I want to make sure that the padding is fairly equal all around the card. We've got 36 pixels on the top, 36 pixels on the side, but the other sides, at the bottom and over to the right, not 36 pixels. So now it's 36 pixels, right? That's all I had to do. If I do want it even, all I have to do is press that first button, or you can have done it manually using the options to the right. What's the style again? Cyberpunk. Yeah, Cyberpunk, there's lots of different ways to define that particular style, but Cyberpunk is one of them. And it's definitely one of the most popular. It's a video game coming out, or just did come out, so everyone's using that term. There might be an actual term for it, but who knows. So now that we have a stack created, there's a few things we can do. One, we can adjust the spacing in between these elements. You can just hover your mouse in between them and adjust them on a one-off basis if you want to, or you can hold down your shift key and adjust them all at once, just like this. So let's say I want 24 pixels in between each one, and maybe I want to pull this one back, right? And possibly I might even want to group these two layers together. So let me pull this back to about 8. And I'm just going to group these layers, Command and Control G, and call this Friends. There we go. You can also adjust your stacking and your padding over within the Properties Inspector as well. Now, what's really cool about stacks and padding is that if you decide to add additional content, the process is super simple. So maybe I want an additional section, very similar to this, but it might show maybe achievements, for example. So watch this. All I have to do is duplicate, Command and Control D. Bam, look at that, right? Achievements. And these profile pictures probably don't make much sense, so just for now, I'm going to unlink these and just change this to a solid color. Just like that, just placeholder for now, right? All right, that looks pretty good. Let me actually bring this in a little bit. Is that too much? It might be too much. Maybe it was okay like this. I think that'll do. All right. And you can also, group stacks as well. So we have this group of buttons. What I can do is over to the right, I can turn on another stack. And if I want to, I can just swap the position of these buttons just like that. You can also swap positions here like that, right? And you can also add elements. So going back to what I was talking about earlier, if we want to display the follower count of this particular user, I can grab my text tool and type out, let's say, followers. Now, I had it set to center, but I can just Do that, and there we go. And it pushes things back on in, right? Maybe I want it all caps. That's way too big. Let's drop this to about 14. Let's go for a nice regular, right? And then if I duplicate this, I can add another one. So maybe this would be, how many followers does this person have? 2,920, right? Make this larger. And you're noticing as I'm doing this, all the other elements are, as you would expect, just kind of pushing things away, which is amazing, right? So I can group these, Command and Control G. This will be called followers. And now what I can do, I put this inside of another group. So this could be social stats. I can enable a stack on this too. Even though there's only one group inside of it, I can enable a horizontal stack. And now I can dive in here, duplicate this over to this side, over to the right. And this might be, let's say, posts. And maybe he has 45 posts, right? Or maybe he has like 42. 42 is a good number, right? Spread that out a little bit. And there we go. We can continue the process just defining our stack and our padding. And if I press play at the top, we can see how our social card is coming along, right? 24 looks pretty good. There we go. Fancy. Laura says, I love the selection of typefaces. I do too. Josephine Sands and Poppins are a pretty good mix. And I could probably also use Josephine up here because it is more of a header. I don't have a name for this person. Maybe his name is John. I don't know. Right? Just like that. Maybe I'll drop this to regular. Looks pretty good. Oops. Actually, extra light looks interesting. No, I think it's too light. Maybe just light. Light looks pretty good, right? All right, so one more thing I wanted to touch on is that, actually, you know what? Let me drag a few more of these out. Just like that. All right. And it did repeat, but that's fine. But a few things I want to touch on is, even though we have a stack and padding enabled, we can select our entire component and adjust the sizing like that. Now, what you're noticing, right, is that certain elements are not moving as you would want. So if you dive into your Properties Inspector over here, you can adjust some of these areas here. Of course, this one has a stack enabled, so you want to turn things off, adjust, maybe you don't want them fixed width, right? So if you dive in here, actually, let me turn the stack off for a second. Turn off padding, right? So fixed width, you can turn that off. And as you start doing some of that stuff and really start tweaking some of these properties, right? Let me turn off fixed width and turn off fixed width. The buttons will start to adjust as you make changes. Now you'll have to go through to many of your elements and make sure you do that. But the last thing I want to touch on is, one of the benefits of using a large component like this is if you started to explore 3D transforms. So if I duplicate this over and have an instance over here and turn on 3D transforms, which you've covered a few times, right? And I can do this, rotate this a little bit, rotate that, and maybe bring this up, right? So we have this really cool 3D card. Even though you can go ahead and dive in here and make changes, right? You can move things around, you can add elements, you can duplicate, you can do that. It's a lot easier to work on a flat environment like this, right? So if I need to make changes, because this is an instance, even though it's rotated in 3D space, if I need to make changes, I can just move things around, and you're noticing it's updating over to the right in this 3D, 3D card, right? It's updating in real time. Look at that. Let me turn stacking back on. I can swap these around, and it's all updating as you would expect. So that is going to wrap it up for today. We created a social card using Adobe XD. Can't wait to see what all of you create. Stick around in just a few minutes. Andrew and Nick are coming up with office hours, and I'm going to go relax for a while, take some time off, take care of me, and hope you all take care of you as well. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you all next time.